Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, certainly the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, and without a doubt, the people's choice and the people's voice, Fernando Uribe, saying happy April to all of you. Again, hopefully it's a great start to the month. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you got to enjoy April Fool's Day. Well, quite frankly, with this president in the White House, every day is April Fool's here in these United States. And certainly, without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, as we are recording today, we know that the former president, Donald Trump, will be reporting to Manhattan District Court to be arraigned, coincidentally, on up to, I believe, 34 charges as it pertains to, I guess, some alleged behavior. But without a doubt, folks, it is certainly a very feisty and very fiery start to the month of April. And of course, there's always a lot to talk about. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, yes, for folks, as I mentioned, the 45th president, Donald Trump, will be reporting to downtown Manhattan and in front of the district attorney of the city of New York, Alvin Bragg, for charges being, again, trumped up against the former president. Quite frankly, as the city continues to go into a downward spiral, this is what Alvin Bragg, I guess, wants to fixate on. With murders up, assaults, burglaries, sexual assaults, everything else going up with violent crimes in New York City, of course, this is what Alvin Bragg, a George Soros-funded prosecutor, wants to fixate on as diversity in the world continues to decline. Now, as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, the liberal media has been having a feast and, quite frankly, blown the load in its pants about the former president being indicted. And, of course, here in New Jersey, there's no shortage of propagandists who masquerade as journalists having the same party in their pants. We all know who they are. They include Tom Moran with the Star-Ledger, certainly David Cruz with NJ Spotlight News, Charles Style with NorthJersey.com via the Bergen Record, and of course, folks, Max Pizarro, the charisma vacuum himself, the editor-in-chief of Insider NJ. And of course, there's been no shortage of people opining on social media, of course, in journalism, not just nationally, but here in New Jersey about the former president being indicted. But of course, Max's recent column caught my attention. I sort of want to break that down a little bit here. So he just titles it very simply, Trump Gets Indicted and New Jersey Reacts. Now, the charisma vacuum known as Max Pizarro starts the article by saying, President Donald Trump often invokes his own interpretation of history as a way of amplifying his terminal sense of victimhood, as he did when he characterized himself as the worst treated president in U.S. history. No, Max, that was actually by the media, okay? Obviously, he's not looking to compare himself to Abraham Lincoln or John Kennedy, who both were killed while in office, as well as other presidents that faced a lot of scrutiny. But this time, the perennial fact-challenged ex-whiner-in-chief, actually it's really, really rich for Max to call anyone fact-challenged. It's like pot, kettle, hello, black. Finally scored an A on his history test. This time, the Apprentice reality TV show star turned Oval Office inhabitant actually did make history, becoming the first former U.S. president to absorb criminal charges. He referenced it from USA Today. A New York grand jury voted on Thursday to indict Donald Trump on unspecified criminal charges in a case that marks the first time a former president has been charged criminally, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, although the charges were not made public, the grand jury, who had been investigating hush money payments to two women who claimed to have sex with the former president, is obviously sort of at the underlying premise of what's going on here. Now, the outline of those payments became public only after he was elected in 2016, and more details were revealed in sworn testimony as Trump served in the White House. Certainly, the former president released a statement last week blaming the opposition party, and rightfully so. Never before in our nation's history has this been done. The Democrats have cheated countless times over the decades, which is true, including spying on my campaign, which is true, but weaponizing the Justice Department, which is true, to punish a political opponent, which is true, which is happening right now with Merrick Garland under the oversight of President Joe Biden, who just so happens to be a president of the United States and by far the leading Republican candidate for president for 2024. It's never happened before, ever. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who was handpicked and funded by George Soros, which is true, folks, is a disgrace. Rather than stop the unprecedented crime that's taken over the city of New York, which that's going on right now, he's doing Joe Biden's dirty work, ignoring the murders and burglaries and assaults, and that's what he should be focused on. This is how Alvin Bragg spends his time. Now, of course, folks, what's interesting, again, and I think where Max continues to sort of lose people in his ongoing boring columns is that he should be as equally outraged about what's going on to New York City than this sort of left-wing prosecutor looking to weaponize his office is, and that's what he's focused on. Again, if Max ever got off his ass and left his house down the shore and maybe, I don't know, frequented New York City, he would see the cesspool it's become. Folks, people are getting stabbed in subways. People are getting robbed in broad daylight. Police officers are getting assaulted. Police cars are being vandalized. People are getting murdered, again, in broad daylight and in various boroughs throughout the city. We're seeing burglary, vandalism at an all-time high. That's what Alvin Bragg should be focusing on. But again, for a guy who decided to downgrade almost 50% of all felonies into misdemeanors, that should tell you exactly where Alvin Bragg sits in terms of his value system. But again, folks, don't be surprised at all that people like Max Pizarro and other propagandists masquerading as journalists have not been as equally outraged about why this entire incident has been so egregious. Now, let me preface this by saying, okay, Donald Trump is not the first man of influence, of money, of any power to sleep with porn stars and playmates and beautiful women since the beginning of time. That hasn't happened, okay? Would any guy decline sleeping with a porn star? I seriously doubt it. Even Max Pizarro. Okay, and even I can't imagine anyone would with David Cruz, but that's a topic for another day. But the point is, quite frankly, folks, that listen, this is behavior that's not uncommon of men of influence, of notoriety, and visibility. Now, again, Donald Trump did this. Now, again, while it was adulterous, we get it. You know, he has a beautiful wife, and certainly one of the, incidents involved his wife being pregnant at the time. But the fact is that, Donald Trump is not the first man to have a wandering eye and not to be able to keep it in his pants. We all know this, okay? For men that struggle with monogamy and can maybe sometimes engage in adultery, well, folks, that's just an inevitable reality, okay? But that's really at the height of what this entire witch hunt's about, okay? Where, again, do you think Max Pizarro would be outraged about what a cesspool in New York City is becoming? Of course not. He's too comfortable making six figures, all cozy in his house, writing about boring-ass things, which, again, has come to sort of surmise the legacy of what Max Pizarro has become as a propagandist, as a journalist, as well as many of his peers. Again, Tom Moran, Charles Style, David Cruz, and many, many others. Okay? But again, this is nothing short of a witch hunt, folks. And that's what the focus should be on. Okay? Now, where Max Pizarro will be, again, intellectually dishonest with you, is talking about a president while in the White House, okay, having affairs. Or guys that became president that while governor in Arkansas, for example, right, had to eventually settle with a woman named Paula Jones in the amount of $850,000 because he sexually harassed her. We all know about Bill Clinton, folks. But you wouldn't know a peep from the liberal media, whether it be nationally or here in the state of New Jersey. You would think that Max Pizarro would have a little bit more, awareness to use something that's called Google and just be able to look at a sitting president having to settle, okay, a lawsuit that was filed against him because of sexual harassment. Folks, that's a serious, serious offense. A guy banging a porn star isn't, especially when he wasn't president, when he wasn't even a candidate, okay, when he was, again, a real estate developer and a reality TV star. Now, again, if you want to criminalize that, if you want to start weaponizing that, then, folks, again, I think you have to start seriously reconsidering what your value system is. Because, again, folks, when we look at, again, all it takes is a simple Google search, and maybe Max has heard of Google, but you can go back to November of 1998 when Bill Clinton was in office during his second term as president, where he settled with Paula Jones once again for $850,000. President Clinton, again, as the Washington Post reported, reached an out-of-court settlement with Paula Jones yesterday, agreeing to pay her $850,000 to drop the sexual harassment lawsuit that led to the worst political crisis of his career, and again, only the third presidential impeachment inquiry in American history. After more than 4.5 years of legal warfare, Clinton and Jones brought a sudden end to the case with a 4-page deal in which he acknowledged no wrongdoing. What a surprise. Bill Clinton admitting no wrongdoing with stuff he can't keep in his pants. That's a shocker. And offering no apology. Now, the agreement, which will be filed with the federal appeals court, considering whether the lawsuit should go forward, required the president to pay within 60 days. Okay? Do you think ever at one time maybe Max Pizarro would have been outraged or writing about the former president that while in the White House had to pay money because of sexual harassment behavior he engaged in while governor of the state of Arkansas, and then subsequently had to challenge it while in the Oval Office? Of course not. But again, Max Pizarro, David Cruz, Tom Moran, and all these other propagandists who masquerade again as journalists, who pretend to be journalists, will be morally outraged. Will come to you with this sanctimonious tone about, oh my God, how evil the 45th president is and how egregious this is. Folks, he's entitled to his day in court. Subsequently, as we are recording today, he will be, again, reporting in downtown Manhattan. He'll plead not guilty to whatever it is. I think it's like 34 counts, and we'll see what happens. Now, again, he'd be smart to move the case to another venue, but again, I'm not an attorney. I'm just sort of speculating out here as a political scientist. But again, folks, let's get back to the matter at hand. It's a witch hunt, and it needs to be called that. But you wouldn't know it, though, by reading awful columns by the charisma vacuum known as Max Pizarro and other charisma vacuums that exist within New Jersey journalism. Again, all the guys I just named. Okay, because that's what it is, folks. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt of epic proportions. Now, whether or not it backfires for the left, the liberal media, this Justice Department in Washington that continues to weaponize its department, a president who's allowing Merrick Garland to weaponize the office of the Attorney General, or whether it's Eric Adams or Governor Kathy Hochul allowing Alvin Bragg to weaponize the office of the District Attorney of the City of New York. Again, folks, I can't tell you enough, okay? I don't know one guy who wouldn't have the chance to bang a porn star if they could. And quite frankly, if they could keep it quiet, why not? Yes, he decided to run for president, and he wanted to make sure any skeletons in his closet were taken care of. I do the same thing. And any of the aforementioned guys, right, who would have the same opportunity, which they probably wouldn't, but if they did, they do exactly the same thing. So again, folks, it's just being myopic. But what else is new with the liberal media? Not just nationally, but more so here in the state of New Jersey. Whether it's Max Pizarro, David Cruz, Tom Moran, Charles Stile, folks, we all know the awareness that they lack when it comes to this. The moral sanctimony, the selective moral outrage. Nothing new, folks, when it comes to New Jersey media, and more importantly, the liberal echo chamber that encompasses the media here in the Garden State. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. And now some local stories for your consideration. Let's start off in Union City, and a shout out and a congratulations to Union City High School and their Department of Performing Arts and Fine Arts, of course, for their outstanding spring musical titled Legally Blonde. Shout out to Jeff Henning with Hudson TV for his exceptional reporting on this very, very important cultural story. Now, without a doubt, folks, we know that we've seen and we've heard about Legally Blonde, the motion picture spectacular, starring Reese Witherspoon, which we all enjoyed in the early parts of the 2000s. And certainly, well, whether it was exploring topics like equality and feminism, quite frankly, folks, it was a lighthearted comedy. And certainly, the very talented and gifted young men and women at Union City High School in their Fine Arts and Performing Arts Department decided to feature Legally Blonde in this year's spring musical. Certainly, it went on all last weekend at Union City High School within the Union City Performing Arts Center. And folks, from all accounts, especially on social media, you certainly were not disappointed with this production. Now, as we all know, the production is based on Amanda Brown's novel, again, by the same name, which, as I mentioned, became a motion picture sensation in the early 2000s, once again starring Reese Witherspoon. Now, again, the 21 students that were cast in the musical had you clapping your hands, tapping your feet, and, of course, singing along with them. Now, without a doubt, as I mentioned earlier, it's a story about equality and feminism. It's about a young girl who, quite frankly, was, I guess, being profiled as being ditzy and an airhead. Well, to no one's shocker, she dug in her heels and, without a doubt, looked pretty while getting a law degree during Legally Blonde. And again, folks, it's a really inspiring story for young girls. Hey, you might be pretty, and sometimes you looked over and just said, hey, it's just eye candy. She's not going to do anything but that. No, that's not the case, folks. It's an empowering story, though, to remind young women, hey, certainly, yeah, having great looks, that's awesome, and that'll get you very far in life. But when you have a brain, too, hey, that's just as equally empowering. So, again, that's what I got from watching highlights, again, on social media about Legally Blonde. Once again, the outstanding spring musical brought to you by Union City High School, and, of course, the Fine Arts and Performing Arts Department at the high school itself. And, folks, listen, not just being an award-winning journalist and philanthropist, but I'm also a lover of the arts. So when I hear young men and women this talented and this gifted put on a spring musical like this, hey, you have to applaud it. So you know what? I'm going to give it an applause because they certainly deserve it. They've worked hard for it. And, again, when you think about the sort of the cultural epicenter of Hudson County, folks, when you think about high schools that excel in the performing arts, the line starts with Union City High School. So shout out to everybody involved with the production, the organization, the promotion. Hey, you're all talented artists. And again, as someone who loves the arts, Okay, I can applaud these young men and women. Whether you're a sculptor, a poet, a writer, a singer, a dancer, an author, whatever it is, folks, whatever affinity you have within the arts, hey, shout out to you because you're working at something that not many people are gifted at. And I'll tell you something right now. These young men and women at Union City High School, they certainly have that gift. So kudos to them. They have a bright future ahead of them, not just at Union City High School, but certainly within the artistic community. And now let's move to Jersey City. And folks, without a doubt, shout out to the Hurley family as Danny Hurley Jr. is now a national champion. The University of Connecticut men's basketball team got to celebrate during the Final Four as they are the 2023 national champions in men's basketball. And certainly it's just another accolade to add to the Hurley family coaching tree. As we all know, Danny Hurley is the son of the iconic basketball coach Bob Hurley Sr., who led St. Anthony's to multiple national championships and, of course, recruiting the most talented basketball players anywhere in New Jersey. But this past week in Houston, Texas, folks, Danny Hurley can cement his own legacy as a national champion, coaching once again the Huskies of the University of Connecticut to a national title. Now, he proved to be the better team ultimately over the Aztecs from San Diego State in a very, very competitive game this past Monday night. Certainly during a nationally televised audience, and certainly a shout out to Jim Nantz calling his final national championship game for CBS Sports, a guy who I've grown up loving when he's been calling the NFL, tennis, the Masters, any golf, anything that CBS Sports puts out. Folks, you know you've been blessed hearing Jim Nantz's voice all of these years. So I made it a point to watch this game because you know what? I'm not going to hear Jim Nantz's calls anymore during March Madness. Without a doubt, hey, UConn's size and toughness inside proved to be way too much for the Aztecs as they were able to overpower them in the second half and subsequently win this year's national championship. But let me just say this about Danny Hurley. I had the privilege of meeting Danny Hurley years ago, very much when I met his father, working as a probation officer in the New Jersey Judiciary many, many moons ago at the sort of decrepit county building located in 595 Newark Avenue, which, by the way, folks, thank goodness that the Hudson County freeholders were able to pass a resolution to get a new building built, and hopefully that'll be up as soon as possible. But a lot of fond memories I have at 595 Newark Avenue, and one of them was working with Bob Hurley, who again was a master probation officer at the time while still coaching at St. Anthony's High School. It was very interesting, folks, because as you walk the hallways of the county administration building, yeah, you might say to someone, hey, what's up? Hey, so-and-so. Hey, Fernando. Hey, you, whatever. What you always made a point to do was say, good morning, Mr. Hurley, and good afternoon, Mr. Hurley. And that's the level of respect that Bob Hurley Sr. commanded, not just in the hallways of the county administration building, but also on the basketball court. And without a doubt, Bob Hurley has a tremendous legacy, ultimately being elected to the National Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. But certainly, folks, when we think about legacy and excellence, we think about Bob Jr., certainly his time at Duke University, and certainly those accolades as a national champion. And without a doubt, folks, his younger brother, Danny, who now can cement his own legacy in the Hurley coaching tree, again, as a national champion. So shout out to the University of Connecticut, again, as a Rutgers alum. Many, many years did the Huskies ruin Rutgers basketball seasons over the decades there while in the Big East. But hey, listen, you can't hate on Danny Hurley Jr., a guy born and raised in Jersey City, a guy with a little attitude, a guy with a little awareness. But more importantly, folks, you saw the humility in celebrating that national championship this week. Yeah, he's as tough as nails, folks. You can tell he's from Jersey City. He's a tough kid. But let me tell you something. What's even better about him is his heart. His players will play for him. His players will go the extra mile for him. And you saw that during this year's March Madness. So once again, congratulations to Danny Hurley Jr., leading the University of Connecticut men's basketball team and those Huskies to a national championship in 2023. Well-deserved for a guy who has cut his teeth in different programs. He won 20 games at different schools, but the biggest challenge came at UConn. And you know what? He answered it with flying colors. So once again, congratulations to Danny Hurley Jr. and the UConn Huskies for winning this year's men's basketball national championship. And now let's move on to a statewide story I think that will definitely get your attention. A shout out to Sophie Nieto Munoz, a very talented journalist with the New Jersey Monitor, for her report on this story. Now, apparently there is a bill being introduced in the state legislature that will be tracking deadly car crashes that ultimately will be caused by cannabis impairment. Now, lawmakers may require the New Jersey State Police to release statistics on deadly car crashes involving marijuana in an annual report if a bill does indeed come into signature. just like they do for alcohol-related crashes. Now, an Assembly bill titled A5348, which was introduced last week in the State Assembly, would direct the state police to track and publish the statistics in its annual fatal motor vehicle crash report. Now, the sponsor of the bill is outgoing Assemblyman Kevin Rooney. He wanted to say it's important to quantify cannabis-related car crashes to see if recreational marijuana is contributing to more deadly encounters on our roadways here in the Garden State. In an interview this week, quote, "In order to fully understand whether or not it really is a major concern in New Jersey, we need to work alongside the state police and our local police departments and find out if they're experiencing these types of car crashes. Drivers under the influence were the leading cause of fatal traffic crashes in the state in 2021, according to a report that was released this past January, and again referenced by Assemblyman Kevin Rooney, marking the third year in a row that car crashes were up compared to the previous year. Now, intoxication, including drugs and alcohol, were the top contributing factor in more than 200 car crashes in 2021, a 30% increase from 2020, according to the state police. Now, in August, for example, prosecutors in Toms River examined a woman that was under the influence of cannabis when her car was involved in a fatal four-car crash that left 2 people dead. Now, marijuana has been readily available for adult use for just under a year, again, due to the referendum being passed overwhelmingly in 2020. So it's hard to know its impact on deadly car crashes, again, as Assemblyman Rooney noted in various interviews last week. But if there's an issue, it should be known so the legislature can take action and do it subsequently and do it diligently. Well, folks, it's interesting. Again, and I don't have a dog in this fight, as I've talked about before. I don't have any desire to smoke marijuana. I never have. I never will. It doesn't interest me. As far as I'm concerned, give me a good glass of wine and a nap, and that's how I get rid of my, stress for the day. But we all understand, folks, that cannabis has become a very popular form for pain management, and rightfully so. The last thing we need is people hooked on pain pills, or a way to treat anxiety, or a way to really treat, for example, insomnia. Things that thankfully I don't suffer from, but quite frankly, many New Jerseyans do. Now we know that cannabis has become readily available in many dispensaries across the state. Yes, there are still many municipalities that have not allowed a dispensary to be opened within their town or city limits, but that's not the point, folks. The point is to at least try to monitor how we can do this. Now, again, what was interesting, though, about this story was, again, as it was referenced in the article, that there's been an issue in other states that have indeed legalized marijuana for adults. So, for example, from 2013 to 2017, fatal car crashes involving drivers who tested positive for marijuana indeed doubled in Colorado, where recreational sales began in 2014, again, according to statistics published in the Denver Post. Also, in 2022, a report published by Rutgers University found that 5 states that legalized recreational marijuana saw an increase in traffic accidents and deadly crashes. While Colorado had the biggest jump, fatal car crashes decreased in Nevada, for example, by nearly 10%. Now, of course, experts are still sort of debating about exploring a link between marijuana usage and car crashes, and of course, how that ultimately may not prove to be easy. And that's true, folks. There isn't a machine yet calibrated to determine exactly cannabis impairment. Now, as we all know, when it comes to DWIs, there is an apparatus that's managed and calibrated by local police departments. It's sort of really the bread and butter of determining, again, accountability when it comes to driving while under the influence. Now, New Jersey has arguably the most punitive and strictest drunk driving laws anywhere in the country. Hasn't stopped people from driving drunk, though, folks, in New Jersey. So it hasn't even been a deterrent. Now, again, there are devices that measure impairment. Now, when it comes to alcohol, is there a device that measures impairment when it comes to cannabis? That has not been, to the best of my knowledge, that has not been produced yet. Rest assured, though, folks, if that device doesn't indeed become available in the marketplace, you know that municipalities are going to jump at trying to purchase those devices because they'll prove to be somewhat, at least reliable when it comes to impairment. Now, as we all know, folks, one of the biggest pet peeves I think attorneys have when it comes to fighting drunk driving cases is whether or not these devices that measure the blood alcohol level of people, right, that are being stopped during a DWI checkpoint, is indeed accurate. If the device is not calibrated every 90 days, folks, those measurements on the device ultimately prove to be inconclusive and thus cannot be used in court against a defendant. Again, a field sobriety test, oftentimes any sort of body cam footage, sometimes can just be the incriminating evidence that does somebody really, not dirty, but for the most part, it's what ultimately creates their doom when it comes to facing a judge and a subsequent DWI. Whether or not, though, a device is available when it comes to, let's say, again, marijuana impairment, that remains to be seen. But I'll tell you something, folks, it's a story you definitely want to keep an eye on for, because trust me, if a device becomes available in the state of New Jersey to measure cannabis impairment and ultimately the effect it's going to have on car crashes, well, I'll tell you. Again, listen, I like Kevin Rooney. I've interviewed him on multiple different platforms in my media brand, and he's a stand-up guy. He's not one of these conservatives that's looking to get people or continue the stigma of those that use marijuana. Of course not, folks. That's not the case. All right, but we do want to make our roads safer. Despite, again, as I mentioned before, despite having the strictest drunk driving laws anywhere in the country, people still drive drunk in New Jersey. Our roads sometimes are not safe because of drunk drivers. Now, we have to start worrying about people that are driving under the impairment of marijuana, which is funny to me because, again, everyone that I know that smokes marijuana, the last thing they want to do, at least from my recollection from conversations, is to get behind the wheel of a car. Again, with ride-sharing services such as Lyft and Uber so readily available, it just baffles my mind that anybody would want to get behind the wheel of a car and drive somewhere. I get it. You go visit someone, you go, I don't know, to a party, a wedding, maybe someone has a vape, someone decides to light up, whatever the case may be, I understand that. You're driving somewhere and maybe, hey, you know, marijuana is readily available, and you'll decide to smoke it or consume it in some capacity. A vape, an edible, I get all that. Okay, I understand that. It's not for me. Okay, but unfortunately, there's still a stigma that's attached to cannabis usage and consumption. And I think that this, well, the bill, listen, on its merit, the heart's in the right place. The problem is, how are you going to measure conclusively and objectively whether or not cannabis impairment does indeed exist? As I said before, we have a lot of trouble trying to make sure that we get drunk driving laws due to alcohol, I guess, under control. How are we going to do this with cannabis? That remains to be seen. But again, a shout out to the New Jersey Monitor for reporting on this story. And it'll be very interesting to see whether this bill advances in the state assembly and then subsequently if it advances in the state senate. But folks, I don't know. A lot of things can go wrong here, but one thing that won't go wrong is, again, the intent to make our roads safer. You know, folks, arguably, that's always a good thing. And that's our show for this week. To check out all of the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group, the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County. Check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv. Don't forget to subscribe to the Hudson Media Group on YouTube. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, like it on all of its social media platforms. Make sure you like it on Facebook and follow it on Instagram and Twitter. And as a reminder, folks, new episodes of the 7-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which are available via blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, will resume during the month of April with brand new guests, brand new topics, and of course, brand new controversies to examine each and every week. So of course, we'll have brand new guests. Download the episodes that are already available there at the website from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet, and you can listen to them anywhere, anytime, and take Talking the Hudson with you during the spring and summer months ahead. Don't forget to like Talking the Hudson on Facebook, and of course, make sure you like Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe via the Hudson Media Group on Facebook as well. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, folks. Sharing is caring. I always appreciate my loyal viewing audience. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via Latino Spirit online magazine for 2020, 2021, and now in 2022. Of course, folks, the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, and without a doubt, the people's choice and the people's voice. Yes, it's me, ladies and gentlemen, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Easter to all of you. Enjoy with family and friends. And as always, thank you so much for watching.